Well, hello, White Sox fans. Welcome to a emergency. Dylan Cease has been traded stream/podcast. How you
Yeah,
doing, James?
The Wednesday night edition. I'm good, man. How are you? Dude, that was like a horrible time for me. Just like the absolute worst possible time that could have happened. So like I was eating dinner with my wife and kids, and then like she, went upstairs to like do whatever, and I usually like clean up the kitchen and put on the TV or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh god." Like and then I'm like, "Okay, well I'm going to check out this return." And then I wasn't doing any of like the jobs that I typically do, like waiting for a return for 40 minutes. So, but yeah, it's fine. It's, like they usually work out for me. It's usually really late or I'm off work or something, but tonight, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I was running errands late, and I left work late, and I see the tweet as I'm walking through the store that he got traded, and then we didn't get the return until I was not even until I was driving home. So I mean, I was at the store for like 40 minutes. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
just
Did anybody else at the store find
crazy.
out when you did? That's pretty cool when stuff like that happens, I think. I was at Bears camp when the White Sox traded for Peavy. That was interesting. You just like see everybody like get on their phones and they're starting to look around. And then the night that the Bulls landed the number one pick for Derrick Rose, I was at the Sox game, and it was just like you're just like looking over like section to section, like what are you talking? What's going on? Like it was cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, no, I was at Costco, so nobody was really seemed to be
Yeah, it's all
worried about baseball.
it's all Cubs fans. That's why.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so Dylan Cease traded to the Padres, who were I have to imagine that the team was probably already on the plane and on their way to Korea because they're going there to play the Dodgers. Um, so I don't even know if, I mean, does he even fly there? Does he just stay here? I don't. Who knows?
Yeah, my guess is he's not going. I guess the question is, were any of these guys? I guess like Steven Wilson probably is in that airplane. You know, like Drew Thorpe. I don't know. I don't know how. I think he's pitched well this spring, but I don't think it was like anticipated that he was like going to be on the big league team or anything. So
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah,
yeah. No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think Thorpe's there. But I mean, I have to imagine that Steven Wilson, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna throw this out there. It's not my favorite Steven Wilson. Singer for Porcupine Tree, my favorite Steven Wilson. But hey, I'll take this Steven Wilson. He's a pretty decent pitcher. He
yeah,
he just graduated, I think, last year
yeah. And he's like
from
29
prospect.
though.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah,
but he's a decent pitcher,
yeah.
and
He will be traded at the deadline.
yeah, and also, do you? I mean, like I have to imagine, like when I think about every time now that we make a move and it's for a pitcher, I think about what Brian Bannister is doing and what he sees that he thinks that is going. I mean, obviously you look at these guys, and if they're, semi accomplished, obviously you look at them and you go, oh, that's, obviously that's why you want him. But, what does he think that he can improve on to make these guys better?
Well, so I mean, like with Drew Thorpe, it's clearly the fastball, right? I mean, Drew Thorpe has a 70 changeup, like one of the best changeups in the minors. I know I come on every week and tell you how useless spring training stats are, right? So, but I'm about to tell you like how good Drew Thorpe has looked in spring training. So, but I mean, like the fastball's not great, but the rest of his stuff is so good that he's, at least probably a back end starter because of it. And he has the ability to be a lot more than that. I think they bought certainty tonight. If you look at my Twitter, I right away I thought Robbie Snelling, Dylan Head, those types of guys, because I know how much the amateur department liked those guys. I don't know if they were available, but Drew Thorpe is a really good get in this deal because you also got two other guys that are pretty good prospects, right? Like if it's Drew Thorpe as a headliner with guys in their 20s, like yeah, not like in the 20s in their system. Not great, right? But I mean, you got 3 guys that are now in the White Sox top 10. You mentioned pre-show you'd have Thorpe 2 in front of Noah Schultz. I'd have him 3 probably, but I mean, he's no further down than 3. And he could pitch in the majors this year. So, I know your original question was about Bannister. I've done the same thing, right? Like when I heard the Texas rumors last night and they're talking about Jack Leiter, who's been really bad.
Oh, the high walk rate anyway.
Yeah, like had they made that trade, I would have been saying the same thing. Like, oh, Bannister like sees something, thinks he can fix him, get him back to what he was doing at Vanderbilt after all the changes Texas put in. So I think that's just going to be a thing from now on. Anytime they get pitching, it's like this is a Bannister guy. When they trade pitching, this wasn't a Bannister guy. And look, I think he's like earned the benefit of the doubt while the White Sox haven't necessarily. I mean, you go look at what San Francisco was able to do when he was
Yeah.
there. I mean, he would unearth a lot of pitching and he would turn decent guys really good, and really good guys great. So yeah, this one, I'm just pretty excited about the top end of this deal, anyways.
Yeah. So Drew Thorpe, pitcher of the year last year with the Yankees, gets traded to the Padres. It's a second round draft pick by the Yankees out of Cal Poly. And, like you said, the fastball is, at least the velo is not great. But, something that, I've watched him before. But one thing that he does have on that fastball is he does have, some nice arm side run on it, and he's got very good command. The guy goes deep into baseball games, doesn't walk a lot of guys, and he struck out something like 189 people last year. And that was between Advanced A and AA. He finished the year last year with Somerset, I believe, is the Yankees AA affiliate. And when you pair his fastball, which is generally running in the 92 mile an hour area, and you pair it with a plus slider and a plus changeup, and great command, it's just he's devastating out there. And the thing is that the guys, kind of he kind of he kind of has the mindset, it looks like, of like a Dylan Cease, where he's just like even keel out there and nothing seems to really rattle him. He did give up some home runs last year, so like that is a thing, but uh compared to the fact that his whip was like 0.98 last year, I'm not really worried about that so much.
Yeah,
um
he was really
your
good,
feelings?
really good in college. His junior year, obviously, he pitched for the U.S. Collegiate National Team. I think he might have led the nation in Ks. I'm not really sure, but it was similar. And then, yeah, I mean, he was just like a second round pick. I think most scouts think number 3, number 4 starter. But here's the thing: I mean, if Drew Thorpe can throw 97 all of a sudden, it's more than that because of how good the secondaries are. I mean, the changeup's really good. Like he's gonna live in the big leagues even if he's 91 to 95. I mean, that's how good the rest of the stuff is. So, and I think they've just kind of, we could go a bunch of different ways here. Obviously, I think they've added like a mix of these like kind of close to the majors starters. None of them really aces, right? But guys that can pitch in a rotation. Nick Nastrini has looked pretty good. They've already made some changes with some of their own guys, and Jake Eater. It's been a little bit slow there, but I mean, yeah, I mean this is just like another guy for the pile, right? But it's a guy with a lot of upside.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have to say, like initially upon the trade, like it took me about 10 minutes to marinate on it, before I formulated an opinion on it, you know, and, I go through and watch the highlights while I'm cutting things up, and everything. And I'm just like, all right, okay, now I kind of, I reaffirm myself because, like we were all very worried about what the, trade return on a Dylan Cease was going to look like. And when we saw that it was uh, Jairo Iriarte and Drew Thorpe, and that was the only two pieces that we saw on the deal, I was fairly worried, you know. But the addition of Zavala and Wilson on the back end is definitely makes me feel very good about it.
I knew they were getting a big league reliever in this trade somehow. Like it's just like the like it's like okay, get a big league reliever because then ideally you can like trade that guy for something else, right? But and then what the other part of this is what if they sign Michael Lorenzen and then flip him too in July? Like you can add even further. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so like so I had heard yesterday about the Texas. And then like the return got public. So it's like, okay, I don't know if that's going to happen like once like the return gets that public. But I mean, you're talking about Brock Porter, who's underachieved a little bit as a high school righty, um, and then Jack Leiter, and then Duran, which like makes sense for what the White Sox do. But this is much better than that, I think. But I think kind of knowing what the White Sox were asking for from Texas, and Texas being as far along as I had heard they were. So then I heard, like from a really good source of mine, like, no, there's somebody else is in and it like might happen. And I didn't know who the team was. And then Rosenthal wrote about the Padres. So then at that point, it's like, okay, well, I mean, look, if the Padres are topping what Texas has come in with late here, like it's going to be pretty good. I just didn't know what, right? And we saw it tonight. Madman AJ frickin' Preller, man. Like he just never ever stops. This is just what the man does. And I think I said earlier this offseason, and you and I have talked about it a little bit, like they needed a general manager, with the balls to make a trade. Like there's just so many guys like that just don't make trades and they don't trade prospects. And look, I know
Yeah.
like Dylan Lesko and Robbie Snelling, right? Like maybe those guys were never available, and guys like that don't really get traded anymore. Guys ranked that highly. But I mean, even like Baltimore couldn't top this, like even like what are we doing? Like like Cashman sitting on his hands. Like I don't know. I don't know. And AJ Preller is just not really that guy. And the guys that Chris Getz has dealt with, AJ Preller and what Alex Anthopoulos and Jerry DePoto, like he's got all the trader guys like he likes dealing with because they just they get right to it and make deals.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and bring up some video here. I've got two games that I cut up here of Drew Thorpe, and we're getting some pushback on assessments of Drew Thorpe here in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and bring those up as well. So Garrett Hilton says, I just don't see that with Thorpe. I think the odds that his fastball jump like that is not great, and if it doesn't, he's a back end guy. Um, yeah. See, like my opinion on this thing is that, yeah, I would like to. I would like his fastball to go up a little bit, but the thing is with how much he's around the zone and how much run he has on his fastball, I don't think it. I don't think that. Really, we really have to worry about that kind of thing here. You know, um, now I'm not going to call him Greg Maddux, certainly, but Greg Maddux, he didn't exactly have crazy velocity either. You know, um, so like I'm willing to take the jump on this thing. After seeing him pitch a couple of times last year and now like going back and diving into it and just, it's kind of one of those things, like I assumed last year during the season when hearing about Drew Thorpe, I was kind of along the, well, he's a Yankees prospect. So how good can he really be? But then I watched him pitch a couple of times and I was like, oh, okay. This isn't the standard Yankees type hype, that I have been very vocal about when talking about Spencer Jones, when people bring up Spencer Jones and how he has to be part of the return if it's with the Yankees. And, you know, I've said it on numerous streams here that, you know, like personally, when I watch him, he reminds me of a faster version of Zach Collins without the, you know, plus walk tool, you know? So, but yeah, this to me is something different. You know, every pitch has got movement. Um, and the change up, you know, and the tunneling on everything is just immaculate. You know, I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. You know, it wouldn't be the first time, but you know, I mean, obviously, you know, you want the best return that you can get for a Dylan Cease, and you know, I could see how some people would, you know, balk at the guy with the 92-mile-an-hour fastball, but the guy struck out 190 people last year, and you can say what you want about levels. His whip was sub 1, so no matter who he was seeing, mostly it didn't matter. Nobody was getting on base. So I don't know. Your thoughts?
No, I mean I get it. I mean I do think it's a little bit safe at the top, but I think Iriarte is the opposite, right? Like Iriarte is like the the premium velocity guy who like look there's been some bullpen talk with him mostly because like he's 160 pounds, but there's no reason to not just like continue him starting too. And he had 77 Ks in 61 innings last year too with a whip like of 1.2. So, like I understand not trusting the White Sox and their track record, right? But like it really is different people in charge regardless of whether Chris Getz was in the room when all these moves were happening before, right? Like I don't know anything about Paul Janish. Like we're going to learn more about him like as the season goes on, but I do think we know a lot about Brian Bannister. So, if the and I'm curious to see what the team has to say just about these cuz look, like I had heard from a lot of people that Chris Getz was holding out for a lot. I mean, that was kind of what was said all off season. So I think I think people are just a little bit underwhelmed because it's not like a Chris Sale return. But I mean, you also didn't trade Chris Sale. And, I think I tweeted, like, I was scared to death of Dylan Cease pitching this year. I know, Ian, you weren't as worried about that as I was, but I just like,
For the health factor? Is
yeah,
that what?
just or
Yeah.
just the what if he's not good? I mean, I know he
Yeah.
looked good like
Fair.
in spring training, but I mean, like what if it's a lot of 5 inning starts and a bunch of walks again, and then you're getting even less than is offered now, right? And you would always hear from, and even hear it from like beat guys like covering the team that were like, oh, Getz has a price. He's not going to budge. I'm like, yeah, but like he's going to budge eventually because like your price changes at midseason and when there's only another year left. So like I'm good with this. Like, if I could have got like an all bat package from Baltimore, like of course I would have preferred that. But it just like doesn't seem like guys like that were available. I think this is the best they could do, and I think they did pretty well, like considering like how long they had to wait to do it.
Yeah, like that was the thing is that we got to the point where we were kind of conceding that maybe he was going to be with the White Sox this year. At least until the All Star break or the trade deadline. And I don't know, they pulled it off right at the last second. I mean, the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Well, so I mean, it seems like your boy Spencer Jones, who I know you have some concerns about. It seems like that's what the Sox wanted. Apparently, like I don't know. Like, do you like Drew Thorpe better than their two guys, Chase Hampton and Will Warren? I know they were all in the same system before. So I mean, even to top this, I mean, you're looking at what like a Chase Hampton headliner for sure with another. I mean, you might have to do Hampton and Warren to match this. Plus, like a young upside guy, like who was there? George
George.
Lombard or something,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
it just
Yeah,
like
he's like what,
doesn't
18,
seem,
so
yeah, and it just like doesn't seem like the Yankees were very interested in doing something like that. And like you said, like that's the type of deal that would have scared me, just because they're Yankees prospects and they're always overhyped.
always.
Yeah, and even like once you saw like the Texas return a little bit, like I don't know, do you think like people are like the people that are listening now, would you have been happier with what was rumored from Texas? Because that was, I mean, like they were the the bridesmaid here apparently. Like they finished second, so it's Jack Leiter and Brock Porter, who was one of the better prep arms in his class 2 years ago out of Michigan, but he hasn't really lived up to the hype yet either. And then I don't think anything on the positional side was as much upside as Zavala. So I do think that changes things a little bit. We haven't really talked about Samuel Zavala um, at all. And then I've seen the questions on their top 10, like what we think it is.
That's what it,
We can do
yeah.
it. We can do it before we get out of here. We don't have to do it
That was
now.
my thought as well. As
If you want to break down the other two guys, that's fine. But we'll do that
yeah,
before we go.
yeah. I was gonna tell Kevin Malloy. He asked about the overall system, the rankings, and we will. We'll at least kind of kick that around. I don't know if we'll come to a consensus at this point, but we'll definitely kick that around before the show's over. So Jairo Iriarte. So they had him slated for AAA going into this year. At least that's what it says on MiLB.com. Which he was in AA last year, and you know almost averaged 2 strikeouts an inning. I think it was something like 15.6 K per nine. So when you're getting up to like 16K per nine, that's pretty insane. Um, he's living 96 miles an hour on average. So I have to imagine, he's not, doesn't look max effort per se on his pitching. So I have to imagine that he would probably top out, in the 98, 99 mile an hour range. I don't know for sure, but that would be my guess. Um, the whip was a little less, exciting. It was like around 1.3. He still struck out 128 last year, and the fastball's good, the changeup's good, and the slider's good. So you've got guys that can throw multiple pitches and both have good command, which is something that like when that's Matt Thompson's gone because his command was not great. His fastball was good, great curveball, decent changeup, but at the end of the day, if you're putting guys on base all the time, it really doesn't matter, and neither one of these guys do that. What are your thoughts on Jairo Iriarte off the top of your head?
Yeah, so just like a lot of upside, I mean, he's very light, like we talked about, right? He's like 160 pounds. I think that's where some of like the people's perceived relief risk comes from. But I mean, I think they probably send him back to Birmingham and he's in that rotation. I mean, it's big time stuff to the point where like, if he can't start, like you're at the back end of a bullpen, right? So, and look, I don't really know that Iriarte is the second piece, even though that's what we heard. I think Zavala probably is personally, but
That's fair.
they're like right next to each other. So yeah, I think it's good. I think you got one fairly safe guy who I like better than most. And then you have, like Iriarte is better than a lottery ticket, right? But it's a premium arm that's like a little bit more risky, like, just because he, I guess, doesn't have as much upper level success, but you know, pretty good. Two arms at the top, and then the Zavala was the kicker, right? Because I do think for a little bit there, when it looked like I didn't really ever think it was two players. I just like think that's the way that it was reported.
Oof.
The bummer trade did
Oof.
more for the organization. Yeah, I
Ooh.
mean, I don't know. I don't agree
This
with
year,
that.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it
you
depends on
know,
how. I mean, the biggest piece in that trade, um, could be in the rotation this year at some point. But I mean, Thorpe's better than him, so
Yeah, I mean, I think I assume you're talking about
Yeah, Schuster.
um,
Schuster.
yes, Jared Schuster.
Yeah.
And the thing was is that if he can figure out his deception again, because like again he's kind of like a lot like Drew Thorpe, as in that he doesn't throw that hard, and he relies on command and deception to get done what he gets done. And that was as far as I was concerned when I saw the return, that was like pretty much the big part of the return for me was him. The other guys are, like 1 year guys like Soroka and Lopez is like the Shoemake.
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
yeah. Big league utility guy, Braden Shoemake, baby.
yeah, I mean, and like when I heard that one rumored return where like
The
it was like who was it?
the Atlanta
Duran?
one or what? Oh,
No, I think from
for
Rangers.
Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Because
was
Duran's
not thrilled.
24, Yeah, that one, it would have totally been Bannister trying to fix Jack Leiter. That would have been like that whole return, right? But I mean, look, that stuff like that gets leaked for a reason, right? You see an old friend Bob Nightingale like tweeting out White Sox Yankees talks yesterday morning, which either means like the White Sox and Yankees are like super close to announcing something, or it means that the White Sox and somebody else are super close to announcing something. And and he's like trying to put the pressure on a little bit. At least we know that they can still use Bob even without Kenny in the building, I guess. So that's a plus, I guess.
Yep. All right. I'm going to give me 1 second here. I'm going to bring up some old Iriarte video here. And I'm going to, unlike last time, I'm going to put it on a loop so that way it doesn't just die right away. Because I think that is kind of aggravating having that frozen screen there. All right, so here's the first game. I apologize for the video quality, but their center field camera was just not up to snuff. I am sorry. But as you can see, the fastball is coming in nice and lively, and that slider just dies, and it is nasty, and good command. Yeah. So I don't know. I look at both of the pitchers, and I'm happy with both of them. You can say that Zavala was the second guy on this trade, but you know, 96 mile an hour, averaging 2 strikeouts an inning. I mean, I can't complain about that.
Yeah, and I would think, I don't know, like we'll see. Like Thorpe could go to Charlotte, but there's obviously like a lot of NRIs, and we saw the way Chris Getz kind of ran the organization as the farm director. I don't know that he'll be similar as the GM. I mean, obviously it's going to be a bad baseball team, right? So like there's going to be prospects in Charlotte, but I do still think there's going to be a lot of like veterans in Charlotte too. So maybe Thorpe does go to double, both these guys go to double A. I think would be fine to start. And then Zavala is probably the center fielder in Winston, I would imagine, which is good. And you have kind of a loaded outfield in Birmingham of, kind of prospects who we talk about a lot, right? Burke and Tatum and those type of guys. So I think Zavala as the center fielder in Winston, I think makes quite a bit of sense.
So, are you sure that the White Sox are going to be bad this year? Because
Oh
they've got
boy.
40 hits and like I don't know,
Yeah.
like 30 runs in the last 2 days. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think this is their last trade. I think it's their last trade before the season starts probably, but it's not going to be their last one. Um,
Ooh, this is that's a tough one right there.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeesh.
Too bad we don't have a reliever to trade them.
Steven Wilson.
Oh yeah. You want John Brebbia?
Yeah, yeah. May I interest you in a recently healed up calf, John Brebbia?
Or you want Michael Kopech as your setup guy?
You want Perlander Baroa, who just is out with shoulder soreness?
So I'm pretty sure Garrett Crochet is going to be in the rotation probably now.
You think so, huh?
Well, I don't know. Unless so do you think this helps Nick Nastrini?
I I kind of do. Um, yeah, I was.
Like I thought we were going to see a bunch of him anyway. I just didn't know that we'd see him right away, and now there's a
Yeah,
chance we might see him right away.
yeah. I mean, well, I mean, with the way he's looked, I mean, I guess if I will go back to one of his starts in September last year, where he had something like I don't know, 6 wild pitches and like 6 walks or something like that in Charlotte, and you know, um, I could bring that up and use that as like a bit of caution there that yeah, he's looking really good in spring training, but I kind of would like to see him doing it in not Arizona. I want to see the fine-tuned command somewhere where humidity and that stuff is a factor. Because dry um, Arizona, where the pitches don't move as much, like we've had a lot of pitchers in the past where in Arizona their pitches look fine because they don't move as much as they normally do, and then they tend to bleed onto the plate when they get to Chicago, when they get somewhere where it's not dry all the time. And I want to make sure that that's not a thing. So I could see, with all of the, these veteran pitchers that they've signed, I wouldn't be surprised if they still stuck Nistrini down in Charlotte for a little bit just to make sure that everything's good. But I think that it definitely pushes him up, in the order of, how soon he might get up.
Yeah, for sure. So the White Sox did just announce the trade. Um, the collateral damage is Peyton Burdick designated for assignment. So
Yeah, I saw that.
because I think they need 2 roster spots. So this is one thing that I didn't look at. Thorpe is on the 40, and then Wilson is my guess, and the other 2 guys aren't.
Well, Clutch Hat Trick brings up something in the YouTube comments that is certainly worth thinking about. And that is Michael Lorenzen, who has been rumored to be signing with the Sox. Now, I mean, maybe this goes away now that they've got Drew Thorpe, and it kind of pushes everybody else up.
Yeah,
that was kind of close.
But I think they can replace the Cease money now, right? And I know how tight it was always, right? This is kind of the way Jerry does business, right? Like, oh, you have another starter that's ready, or that you want to sign, like, okay, fine, clear this money and then you can sign it, right? Like, which is a ridiculous way of doing this, but it's kind of how they've done things. So look, if Ken Rosenthal like preemptively puts like the White Sox are negotiating with Michael Lorenzen to replace Cease, that's like the first time last night where I was like, well, he's getting traded. And then the second time was when I heard Cease speak in the like in the locker room, basically like, yeah, they basically said I'm getting traded, but they don't know where yet. So I think he kind of had an idea. And then, like the other thing that I thought was funny was the amount of people that kind of asked me like if he would be scratched from his spring training start. And I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't really think that's like a thing, right? Like trade deadline time for sure, right? Like scratch a guy because you want that extra start done like for your team. But I mean he needs to start, it's like his turn in spring. So it doesn't really matter. So
yeah, I mean, he still needs to get his innings in, right?
yeah.
Like you can't just stop him from getting his innings
Yeah.
because you want to wrap him in bubble wrap,
So Clutch Hat Trick, that's a great point. And
yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
Me and Ian talk about, Pedro pretty much every week. And I feel like, look, with 3 podcasts on this like feed now, I don't know how much big league stuff we're gonna do weekly, but I like can't help myself with this guy. And so he definitely knew, right? Like Pedro, I think is one of the only guys in the world that thinks that like the White Sox have a chance to win this year. And look, like I get it. Like when you're in it and you put as much time in as you do, like they should feel like they can win every day, right? But that was like he had his heart ripped out. Like he's like, "What do you mean we're starting Eric Fetty on opening day?" He knew this was coming.
Yeah, I think that kind of took some of the wind out of his sails on his quest for division domination. You know, I got he's. Oh wait, so now I don't
Yeah.
have Cease now.
What's
So
the the scene in Bad Santa where the kid interrupts Billy Bob Thornton at his lunch, and he's like, and he's just like complains about how it's his lunch break, and he screams at the kid. That's like what I pictured yesterday when Scott Merkin asked him, "Hey, do you think Dylan Cease starts on opening day?" And then he just loses
how
his
do I
mind.
know?
Loses his mind. How would I know? Nobody tells me anything. Like, okay, well,
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of had the same feeling. You know, we talked about this yesterday on the major, you know, on hot takes and heaters, and um, like I think everybody kind of had like a looming feeling that, you know, that he was pretty much gone. It's just that it was just only a matter of time, and you know, it was perfect that you know, he goes and strikes out 8 guys and looks fantastic. And it's like a tree falling in the woods. If there's nobody there to see it, did it really happen? I don't know.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, big win for Dylan Cease. He gets to pitch at Petco and live in San Diego for a little while, so that's good. I'll tell you what, though, I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan Cease is traded again before he becomes a free agent, just because it's kind of like the way AJ Preller does things, right? He's going to go for it. That rotation is sneaky, pretty good in the National League, but I mean, if they struggle again, like he could deal Cease at the deadline or next offseason to recoup some of this back and just kind of go from there because like Cease is not signing an extension with anyone. I mean, you don't hire Scott Boras to to sign contract extensions. So he'll be part of next year's free agent class. I just don't know if that means he necessarily finishes the year with the Padres, but at least he doesn't have to pitch for this horrible White Sox team. So he's probably not too upset, I wouldn't think.
you know, I kind of had that thought yesterday when he went out and pitched so well that he was, you know, that Getz had talked to him beforehand and told him, you know, just so you know, there's going to be some rumors flying around. And he seemed really calm about it. And he went out and took care of his business. So this was just brought up that the White Sox over under on their wins is down to 59 and a half or 60 and a half. And I don't know whether to be offended for Dylan Cease that he only counts for what, 3 or 4 games in the win total,
Yeah.
or whether that's just or maybe that's you know, about right. I don't know.
Nah, I'd go over. I mean, you know how hard it's really hard to lose that many games. Like it really is. And I know they're bad. Like they're like bottom 3 team in baseball bad. Like if you told me they're the worst team or the worst offense, like I wouldn't be surprised obviously, but it's just hard to lose that many. Like so if it's 60 or 61, I'm going over. If it's 65 and a half, I probably wouldn't, but something like that. Like I don't think they're winning 70, but 59 is, you know, it's crazy a little bit. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, they had most of their team for, you know, they had,
yeah,
you know, all their guys for the first half of the season last year. So, you know, who knows?
at least they can get the number 1 pick next year. Oh wait, they can't.
It's so frustrating.
So there were some questions that I was going to answer. I mentioned, oh yeah, Kevin Malloy asked because I made a comment about who else they would trade, like literally anyone. Um, like I think anybody in the bullpen, that makes
At
any sort
least.
of noise at all, they'll trade. And obviously, look like what does that return look like? I don't know, right? But I mean, if you get a bounce back from Eloy Jimenez, I'm not sure he's long for the team. They would trade him if they could. They would trade Yohan Moncada if they could. Um, Michael Soroka has a bounce
Kopech
back season,
as well,
right?
if
That's what I
he's
mean.
if
Like
he looks
it
good.
could be any number of guys, like as they kind of reshape this thing. So
Yeah, I think it's pretty much anybody that's only got like a year or two left on
right,
their
yeah.
deal, or is making money
Mm-hmm.
that they're trying to start snipping payroll off here so they
Yeah.
can completely redo
Or you could
how they operate.
you could give a contender Andrew Benintendi for nothing. Like pay his contract.
Please, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, Steven Wilson clutch hat trick said, "Oh yeah, like that's definitely a flip candidate for sure." I mean, Steven Wilson, yeah, Steven Wilson is going to be in their big league bullpen like right away, you know. So that was what Billy Bean in Moneyball was like. I need a reliever. Rincon, yeah, that works. Okay, that's Chris Getz today looking for a fourth piece. He's like,
Yeah,
who do you guys want?
exactly.
Steven Wilson? Okay, all right, done. Like,
Yeah, that. Yeah,
it's
I'm
David
pretty sure that.
Putney. Yeah, I want Putney.
Yeah, I
I need
think
a punt
what did
returner.
Stephen Wilson? He was like, yeah, 1.17 WHIP last year.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah, not bad, and that's 53 innings pitched, 57
57
strikeouts.
Ks in 53 innings. Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah, I mean that's something that somebody can use. That is a usable piece, as they say. That could definitely net you something, assuming that he doesn't just blow up or whatever.
Yeah,
So
the only thing that annoyed me slightly was that the Padres don't get those comp picks anymore because I was hoping they could snag another one of those like in a Dylan Cease trade. Like if it was like Arizona or somebody, I'm like, oh, that could be interesting. But the Padres now spend $250 million on players. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So Samuel Zavala is the guy that we haven't talked about. I don't have any video on him because they announced the return on the trade so late. So I apologize to everybody that I don't have a video for that, but I will throw some out on the Twitter machine here a little bit later. But good OBP, and power. He's been running around a 400 OBP and around a 900 OPS at every stop that he's had. So, there are some concerns about strikeouts, but the OBP around 400 kind of slaps you in the face and says, "Hey, don't worry about that so much because he's finding a way to do what he needs to do to get on base and create runs." Um, obviously, you're happy about this pickup. You want to expound on this?
yeah, so I mean, I like the profile. He's 19 years old. Typical of Padres guys. He was, I don't want to say rushed, but they're pretty aggressive with him. I mean, he's played in A ball, so I think he'll be in high A as a 19-year-old for most of this season. He will turn 20 in season. The strikeouts are a concern, but he gets on base all the time. I think he's going to stay in center field for at least a while. He might have to move to a corner at some point, but he should have like enough power to do so. Left-handed hitter. So yeah, 19-year-old athletic outfielder that can play center and gets on base. Like they don't have many of these guys. So like getting a guy like this as I guess like the perceived third piece in a deal is pretty good. I mean, he was the number 6 prospect in the Padres system coming into the season with Baseball America, and then they signed Leo Dallas DeVry in the international market that kind of bumped him down. So, but yeah, I mean, you get three of the Padres top 10, and their top guys are ridiculous, right? You have DeVries and Salas, and then the 2 prep pitchers who I thought you might have been able to pull one of them, and then it's kind of Thorpe and these guys like after that, along with Dylan Head, who I'm a little bit surprised wasn't in this deal. But look, if they're prioritizing Zavala overhead, like I can live with that. Zavala is a little bit further along. There's more power. So yeah, like it's pretty interesting. I'm not surprised that this was the best offer, like especially this late.
Yeah. I'm see the one thing I don't know about Zavala is his defense. I know I know the position he plays, but I've never watched him in the outfield, so I don't know. I don't know anything about his defense. Only what I've read in scouting reports, which isn't really a whole lot. That he's not slow. He's a decent fielder. So I like that part of the whole thing kind of eludes me until I start seeing him probably play for the Dash in a month.
Yeah, I would think
So
Winston-Salem. I don't think any of that's out yet. I haven't looked to see. I know the White Sox tweeted about the deal. I don't know if Chris Getz has met the media or not, but I would imagine that is that's coming.
yeah, and obviously we'll have we'll have video of that
Yeah.
for Sunday night.
And I think Elijah's writing something up on the trade, so that should be out in the morning. Hopefully, this will post as a podcast. I don't know if anybody else will host. If Elijah or somebody else wants to get on and talk about it, we could, somebody can do another one if they want. But I just think like the aftermath will be interesting, right? Like, what does the team say? Like, obviously they, I'm sure they'll say they were blown away, which is why they did it, right? Like they very clearly wanted to move Dylan Cease, but they weren't going to give him away, and they feel like this is enough. I hear from people at spring training, it's like, oh, I just saw Chris Getz and Barfield and Gene Watson like all together, like upstairs, like it's like, all right, well, like I knew some stuff was going on in the last 48 hours. And then, the baseball media in unison starts writing and tweeting about it. It's like, stuff kind of like starts happening. And I don't know how much like the pitching injuries like had an effect, because like that stuff didn't really affect AJ Preller, right? Like maybe AJ Preller was just going to AJ Preller this whole time, because that's what I had kind of heard from people, like, oh, it's all the injuries, like they got more teams involved, which might be true, right? But it's not like the Yankees freaked out and did it like it was San Diego.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised that it, not be, with Preller being in the equation, I'm not surprised. But I'm surprised that nobody else with all of the, top tier pitching
Mm-hmm.
that's had issues
Right.
here as of late. I'm pretty
Right.
surprised that, that's what did it. And hearing that the Giants were in on it.
Mm-hmm. I know. I was trying to piece together a package from them. Like what does that look like? Like
I
we're
don't
not going to get
know.
into it now, but and look, maybe that's what my guess is. They're going to at least say publicly that they love Drew Thorpe, right? That has to be it. And if these other teams being involved is what allowed them to pry Drew Thorpe from the Padres, pushing this deal over the top, like maybe that's essentially the way it goes. I don't know.
All right, so let's go ahead and
We're
get to
gonna
some of
rank
those.
gonna rank some dudes. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna kind of go back here to the first one of these comments here from Kevin Malloy. Would really like to hear where you guys think the system stands now, rankings wise. Number 10 in the Athletic, 11 in Fangraphs before this deal. Um,
Yeah. So I don't know
you know,
for
I'm,
Law, like did Law rank Mina or no? Like was that after that, or I think it was after that, right?
I think it was after
Yeah.
Mano was traded.
Okay. Well, so Law, I mean, I'm sure Law will have his write up done like when you get up in the morning. Like I'm sure it'll be on the Athletic. Because
Probably.
they don't have a beat writer, but they still put together these sorts of things. I saw there was like a trade reaction on that site from like all their writers. I saw like a little bit earlier. Everybody seemed to be pretty positive about the return for the White Sox, and then for the Padres, it was like AJ Preller. It was like essentially like, hey, like he did it again type thing, without trading his very very top guys. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, I guess like I don't know, like if you think their system is in the 10 to 12 range, maybe this makes it, I don't know, like 8 or 9, something like that, right? If you're
I
more like
mean,
me where you think it's middle of the pack, I think it's probably still middle of the pack most likely. I think 20 is a little harsh, but if you told me like 10 through 15, I could go with that.
yeah, I think that obviously it's going to matter on the publication, where they're going. Um, Me personally, like I kind of thought they were living in like the 14, 15, 16 area um, before this. And I kind of think that this has to put them, somewhere at least around 10,
Well,
I
you're
would
adding 3
think.
top 10s, right? So in Baseball
Yeah.
America, I think Drew Thorpe is 54th in baseball right now. So, for them, that puts him ahead of, like, they only have 2 in the 100 there. It's Montgomery and Schultz. So I think it's like, for people that really like Caro and Ramos, then you really like this system. You know what I mean? But for others, I kind of feel like it'll still be Montgomery, Schultz, and Thorpe, you know, and then a lot of guys in the 101 to 150 range. But look, I mean, the difference in the system from today to this time last year is staggering. And look,
Yeah.
they won they win 61 games, So look, I mean, yeah, it's not like this accomplishment that like it's not like they're running away with the Central every year and they've done this to their farm system, right? Like it took them being bad and trading guys away. But I do think the system's a lot better. And after the July draft and maybe some more trades, like it could be even better than that. And they have a lot of money coming off the books. So look, I don't think it's all bad. And I understand being cynical and the skepticism. Like I'm there too. I know who the owner is, right? But I don't think this is all terrible.
Yeah, I kind of think that if you had told me before that the White Sox were going to trade Christian Mena, Gregory Santos, and Dylan Cease, and that the farm system was going to be markedly better than it was when Mena was here, I would have been pretty surprised, you know. But I think the return on the Cease trade's just gonna. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like I look at Iriarte, and like I'm looking at basically where I was kind of figuring that Mena was, in the top 10 for the White Sox, like somewhere around like 7, 8.
Right.
I think he's probably going to end up there. And then you got Drew Thorpe, so he's going to bump the guys behind him back a little bit as well. So I think the system has gotten markedly better. The other question that was there, let me scroll back up to it.
This is the tough part.
Yes, it really is. So I had we had talked about this a little bit earlier, that I kind of feel like maybe Drew Thorpe might push Schultz back to 3. And for me, it's an innings load thing. Haven't seen the innings out of Schultz yet, and the fact that pitcher of the year, very polished, and the stuff's nasty. I mean, some people are saying that, including our very own Danny Miller, saying that he thinks that just, because he's got a 92 mile an hour fastball, that he's going to get touched up. So, I don't know. Your thoughts on that, where he slots in?
Yeah, so I mean, Colson's obviously 1. I'd have Schultz 2 and Thorpe 3. Definitely, you're gonna flip them. I have no issue. I mean, whatever. It's your list. I understand like the difference there. I don't really understand Thorpe lower than 3 though, honestly. And I think we'll see it, right? I think there'll be some people who are high on Ramos or Caro or these other guys, but the way you have to look at this is like Thorpe is a top 100 prospect pretty much everywhere, right? So if you think somebody else in the system's better than him, then they would rank higher on the top 100, right? And we're not just looking at lists and doing this, but it's just kind of a, like looking at where everybody ranks. So I'd probably go Thorpe at 3. Like on my personal list, I think I ranked Caro like ahead of Ramos, but I mean, I think those guys are 4 or 5 still for me. And then I'd have Nastrini 6. Like I understand Nastrini ahead of those guys. I just lean position player. If I think it's similar. So I think those are the 6. And then after that, like I think these other 2 Padres guys factor in.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like, and I kind of struggled, with the Nastrini Eater thing personally, on my own list, just because the upside for Eater, if he regains, what he had pre TJ,
right?
If he has that back, I mean, you are looking, like
It's
Paul
a number.
Skeens level dominance,
Right. It's like a number 2 starter for sure. Like if
Yeah.
he's, yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So I'd understand that. Like, so then right in that like 7, 8, 9 range, I mean, you're looking at Eater. I think you're looking at Iriarte, Zavala in there. And then it kind of just depends like where, do you like Jacob Gonzalez? Do you like Peyton Paulette? Do you like Jonathan Cannon? Like, at that point kind of like personal flavor type stuff. But I do think these three guys probably go right into the top 10, I would think.
Was Eater a top 100 guy? I don't
Yeah.
remember. He was, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
like right after his
very briefly. So there were a lot of teams that were trying to get Eater in the 2020 draft. And I think it was Joe Doyle that told us, like, teams were mad. The Marlins like overpaid him in the 4th round and got him, and they were, and then he's just been hurt a ton, but he was awesome in the minors. And then he got hurt multiple times, had Tommy John, So, I mean, there were a lot of people that obviously hated that trade, but there were some scouts that loved it because they'd seen Eater so many times, and they were like, "Oh my goodness," and just what he could be. But yeah, he's got to. I mean, he's got to stay healthy. He has to pitch, and I'd heard he was a little bit better in instructs, like, or similar than he was like when the Sox got him. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of upside. I mean, he could be right up at 2 or 3 at midseason if he's as good as he's supposed to be. So yeah, it's definitely a more interesting list than it was.
Yeah. Just to remind everybody, just off of the top of my head, Jake Eater was drafted. They moved him directly to Double A. He pitched almost 100 innings right after college, had a sub-1 whip, had a right around an ERA of 1, struck out in like 98 people and walked like 24. So 4-1 strikeouts to walks. The dude was borderline unhittable in Double A coming straight from college.
Yeah, and
like,
then
that is Paul Skeens level dominance, just insane.
And then he blew out, and he took a while to get back, and then he had a leg injury too.
Fractured his foot. Yep.
Right. So
on his plant foot.
And I will say he did, like, before the White Sox traded for him, he looked pretty close to all the way back. In like 4 starts for the Marlins affiliate, for the Marlins Double A affiliate, and then obviously he came here and it was a lot of walks, and it kind of regressed a little bit, but we've talked about Brian Bannister a lot, so hopefully that magic gets worked a little bit. But I mean, look, I mean, even like in closing here, I mean, Drew Thorpe, Jared Schuster, Nick Nastrini, Jake Eater. There's like a lot of guys here who I don't know that they have an ace, right? But it's a lot of potential like number 3 and number 4 starters, which are valuable guys, and I think we could see all of them this year probably, like at some point. I mean, there's no reason not to. You have 2 veteran catchers, I think, for that reason. So, they have they've built up quite a bit of similar pitching depth for sure.
Yeah, and I mentioned on Hot Takes and Heaters last night. I was listening to Benetti the other day, and previously in like, I don't know, 2 seasons ago, it was like 11 pitchers, like starting pitchers that you needed per year. Benetti said that last year the average team had 12 and a half starters. So these guys are, some of these guys are definitely going to see some time in the majors. And I mean, it just depends on on who, Excuse me. Wow.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so we'll see. Like, I guess just like the aftermath of this, what does it mean? I think what it means is we're going to be having beers and food and watching Eric Fetty start opening day for the White Sox is what I think it means.
I'll be there.
Me too. Yeah.
Hooray. But I think that regardless of what happens, I don't think I could be as dejected this year as I was last year during opening day.
I mean, even like the last 2, like the second Tony year from a couple weeks in on was brutal, and then last week, like, they just kick you right in the face immediately with the losing streak, and it just never got back, right?
I mean, from the second inning, they kicked you in the face when Kopech gave up like 5 home runs or something on opening day.
Tipping his pitches against the Giants like right away. Yeah. So it was brutal. Yeah. I don't think he'll be starting opening day. So
I also do not. Do you have anything else?
No, I think we're good. I think we think we covered it. I don't know if we'll have any more breaking news podcasts like before the season starts, but it's fun. It's
I think so.
fun to have some, I guess, just like some clarity on the situation, because I would have been, I don't know, like I would have liked watching Dylan Cease pitch, obviously, but I would have been nervous the entire first half that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I get that. I just, it's kind of one of those things that if you don't get your price, I didn't see much point in like moving off of that just
Yeah.
because, you know. Um,
We're gonna go.
yes.
Do you think this was? Do you think he settled? Like, do you think this is lower than he anticipated?
I mean, 2023 pitcher of the year and another very solid starting pitcher. I mean,
Yeah.
this kind of is like one of those things where, and like talking about the clutch hat tricks comment here, they have a bunch of solid young pitching depth. Somebody has to work out. Somebody, you get this giant just pile of arms. You have to at least be able to get some controllable arms for the foreseeable future that are going to, put some solid innings out there. Especially when you put these kind of arms in the rotation, somebody is going to take it and run with it. I just don't know who it's going to be.
Like, does he make this trade in December? Maybe not, right? But I think the risk calculus was different in December, right? Like in December, you're still holding out for like some sort of crazy package, whereas now you determine that this is better for you than figuring out what you could get for a year and a half of Dylan Cease instead of 2 years of Dylan Cease. So I think it factors in a little bit, and I knew, like, look, I think he got enough for sure. I think it's fine. But I just wonder how much their thought process changed as this went along.
Yeah, I'm also curious about that. Whether he feels like he didn't get what he wanted, or if he feels like this was a steal. I'm kind of curious. And I'll never know. I'll never know. But I'm curious. Like what his feelings, like what his true feelings on the return are. But
yeah, and Kevin mentioned Jordan Leisure. Look, I don't know who made that trade, right? It was like Rick Hahn or Kenny. That's a good freaking trade, man. Like
it
that,
really was.
the Dodgers trade is gonna pay dividends, I think, because snag Jordan Leisure and Nastrini for two guys that you wanted the hell out of your clubhouse immediately is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not angry about that one. So thanks for everybody hopping on tonight and hanging out. Hope you feel better about the return on the Cease deal than you felt before you came in here, and hope we eased your your feelings a little bit. I don't know how much, if you're ready to jump off a ledge. I don't know what to tell you, but it is what it is, and we'll see how this pays out.
We gotta talk our own guys off the ledge, Ian. They're not, they're.
Well, I mean, we still haven't gotten over the Jacob Gonzalez thing with Elijah, so I don't know, FutureSox.net. You can find written content. There will be an article about this by our Elijah Evans tomorrow morning about the trade. You can find our top 30, which now we're going to have to update at some point here in the near future, I would imagine.
Yeah, so hey, really quick, before we do that, so we are going to publish our individual top 30 lists like on our Patreon, and we'll just include these names in it now. There's no reason not to. So that'll be a little bit different. We won't retroactively like fix the 30 on the main site, but our individual ones we can do it for.
Yeah, that's fair. So you'll have those personal ones. You can come head hunting for us when we release them, and you can yell at us on Twitter. My name's Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox at James Fox 917. Future Sox on Twitter at Future Sox on Twitter. On FutureSox.net, you can support us on Patreon if you want us to continue doing content. You can also get other special content that will be available. A lot of interview stuff. Also, if you are listening to this in podcast form, know that you can watch all of our live streams on our YouTube, and you can also watch it on twitch.tv/FutureSox. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. We appreciate all you guys that hopped in on the comments, and hope to see you guys on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Unless there is something else that happens in the near future here in the next couple of days, which I don't foresee, but you never know. For myself, Ian Eskridge and James Fox, we appreciate you guys. Have a great night, and we will talk to you soon. All right, thanks.